shall we make a start then? So what I thought was, first off, I would show you a few little different ways of colouring these dies, and different effects, different materials that you can use, and also how they mix and match with older sets. Right, so let's just quickly run through what dies and sets that I've used in the card, and then we'll get cracking on some colouring tips on the flowers. So obviously I've used the brand new Blooming Lovely. I'm also using the Fabulous Fonts stamp and die set. I've not used the dies, I've only used the stamps, and I've stamped directly onto my card, and I've done all that already. Now the middles that everybody asked for come from the POSY Builder set, okay, and it's this little die here. So it's this one, can you see that, this little die here, and it's so useful. So I've die cut loads of those, and I've used the DITSY Florals embossing folder. I used this the other week and I just adore it, so I thought I would use it on today's card. I've cut loads. As you can see, this is Lisa's white texture card, and I've coloured most of my flowers just using the stencil brushes and the blending inks, okay, because it's just so easy. So as I say, these are cut in white texture card, okay, and when I've done my flowers for the card that I'm doing, all I've used is the blending inks and my stencil brushes, okay. So if I show you like one of the colour, if I do two of the colour schemes that I've used on my flowers for today's card, then you'll see how easy it is, alright. So I've used Shocking Pink. I'm just going to put all my inks on one side actually, because then I can use my silicone mat out of my Ultimate to put my ink pads on, then they won't move around. So let's start with Shocking Pink, and I'm literally coming off my blending mat onto my white card. Now you can go as deep or as pale as you want here. I actually really like the deep colours, particularly on the card that I've done today, because I wanted to pick out the colours in the paper that I've used on the card. And the paper that I used, and it comes from Box Kit 1, so you know, some of you might have papers left from Box Kit 1, some of you might not. Alright, so that's my first colour. Now in the centre here I wanted a totally different colour, so I went with Surf's Up. So if I swap these out and just come in with my, I'll use a smaller brush actually, and just come in with my Surf's Up, again working straight off the blending mat into that other colour, and you'll see where it mixes, it changes colour slightly. So it goes from a blue into that pink, and it goes slightly purple. So in order to not end up with a harsh blue line, what I then do is go back in with that Shocking Pink and just go over the blue again to blend that in a little bit more, because I think that the lighter colour on top of the dark blends better. Now you can leave it like this, you can add a gem in the middle, you can add the centres of the flowers in the middle. Obviously I've cut some of the centres, as you can see here. Now you get 6 little dies to cut the centres, so you can cut 6 at a time. So you can see there that that blue and pink make a beautiful purple. And I've used that colour scheme on the flowers that I've used today. So you can do it that way round, but you could also do it the other way round. So if we go with a larger brush and come in with the blue onto the tips of the petals, so you come in again off the blending mat. So again, just literally brushing off the blending mat onto that white texture card, and obviously because it's texture card you need to work the ink into that texture, and then we'll go the opposite way round and come with the Shocking Pink into the blue, and although they're the same colours, it just gives a totally different look to this flower. Now I am coming quite a way into this so that I'm coming into the blue quite a lot, because I really like that transition into the purple before you get to the blue. So you've got pink and blue and pink, but they do look totally different, but they're so quick and so easy. You know, it's just, you're limited only by your own imagination. So if I just get rid of this, a little bit of water, to get rid of that. Okay, and then we'll change the colours up slightly. So you can use whatever colours you want. Now I used purple and yellow yesterday and I didn't like what I ended up with. I'm going to go in with Pina Colada. I'll just shift that out of the way over there. So I'm going to come in here with this Pina Colada. It's a beautiful yellow, and it's a softer yellow than Juicy Pineapple. Okay, so I've done my yellow, and on the other one I'm coming in from the bottom of the flower with the yellow, and I'm coming up to meet what's going to be purple. Okay, so that's that colour. Let's move that out of the way, and then I'm going to come to Sweet Violet, and I'm going to use my blending brush, my stencil brush again. Now I'm going to take quite a bit of the ink off my brush, because on this one I don't particularly want it to be too dark. Okay, so I'm coming in with that Sweet Violet into the middle of that flower, but on the other one I want it to be a little bit darker, so I am going to come in a little bit heavier. And again, you can see it's on texture card, and if you want a solid colour, then you're going to have to work that ink into that texture. It doesn't take long at all, really, but just be careful when you're brushing your ink like this. So you're coming off your blending mat onto your card, just make sure your petals don't lift, because the last thing you want to do is just flip them up and crease them, because that'll just spoil the look. Okay, so I'm not going to go any deeper with that. So then, instead of leaving them like this, then you would put the one on top of the other, like so, glue them in place, and then add your centre. So this is the centre, and I'm going to do that purple just because it fits in with everything else. So I'm going to go quite heavy on here, because I want this to sort of stand out. But you can see how quick and easy adding different colours is, and how different your flowers are going to look depending on what colours you use. Okay, so there's the centre. So if I just add a little bit of glue to this, so that we can actually put it together and you can see what it looks like. It doesn't take very long at all. Okay, so I'm just going to add this to this one, like so. You can leave a gap with the petals underneath, cover the gap, it's entirely up to you. Don't really think it makes that much difference, to be honest. It's just however you like the look. And then I'm just going to add the centre down, and I'm only gluing in the centre because I want to lift those little spiky bits, and then you've just got to decide which way it fits best. It doesn't really make a great deal of difference. It looks good anyway round, to be honest. And then you can shape the flower if you want to, but then add them all to your card. I love that. I think that is absolutely delightful. I'm so pleased that Val did that card, because I would never have thought of doing something like that if I hadn't seen Val's card. And I love that. I think that's just, I think it's just adorable. Let me see if I think. Don't appear to be getting any comments. Yeah, comments have seized on my computer, so I'm gonna have to just hope for the best on my iPad. So that's your little pansy. You again make them in whatever colours you want. It's just fabulous, just fabulous. It's just so beautiful. So that's another way of colouring them. Then I thought, I watched Lisa's video where she was using her interference inks, and she was smooshing them onto card and making lots of fabulous different patterns and colours, and I thought that was a brilliant idea. So I've done 2 different lots, but I've used exactly the same colours. So you can see on here, this is where I've cut all my flowers from, and the patterns on the flowers are totally random when you do it like this. But the colours that I used were these. Okay, now I know Lisa did it with re-inkers, I think, but I've used the ink pads just to show you that you can do exactly the same with the ink pads as you can with the re-inkers. Obviously the re-inkers makes it a lot easier because it's instant liquid, and it gives a more intense colour, I think, but you can still use the ink pads and get just as good a finish, if you like. So I've used these colours, so I've used Mermaid Lagoon, Fruit Salad, Sweet Treat and Crushed Velvet, okay, and I've used the same colours on white as I have on black. So if I show you the flowers that I did on white, I'll just move those to one side. You can see here that these colours, I mean, I would describe these as fantasy colours because they're not real flower colours, are they? But they're still beautiful and they will still look fabulous on, I don't know, a bit more of a fantasy card, if you like. So if you were using the button box fairies, for example, then these flowers would probably look fantastic on those. So it just goes to show you don't have to use solid colours, okay? So using the same colours, but obviously you're going to get a different colour on black card, I did the same on black. Now you can see that the shimmer really shows up. I hope you can see that on the camera. That shimmer really shows up on the black card, okay? Now if you were going to do a bit more of a grungy card, then I would say these would be perfect. So if I just move those to one side and put these out, and again you can see that the colours are totally random, and again more what I would class as fantasy flowers, because they're not real colours, are they? They're not real flower colours, but they just look so different. And if you wanted to, I suppose you could mix the white and the black if you wanted. I probably wouldn't. I'd probably leave the black and do a more grungy card than I would with these. I'd make this probably a more feminine card. The black ones I think would work fantastically for, you know, people who like that sort of more grungy male look, I suppose. If you can, no reason why you can't have a male look with flowers, is there? But it just gives you a different way of colouring your flowers. And again, it's just plain coloured card. This was Lisa's white texture card, and this is Lisa's black texture card. So again, you don't have to have loads of different colours of card. You can make your own, okay? So that was another way of colouring them. I'm not going to put them together, otherwise we'll be here all day. So that was another way. It is actually a baby wipe. It is. And it's the baby wipe that I've used all morning to wipe up all my ink off my blending mat, okay? Now, if you were going to use these, there's no reason why you can't. You can either stick them direct to your card, because obviously they're very flimsy, as you can see, or to give them a little bit more stability, you could actually stick them to white paper. Now I've only used paper here, I haven't used card, because I didn't want them to be too firm. Because the baby wipe is really soft, I wanted them to be a little bit more pliable, if you like. So I've just stuck them to paper. What I did was, when I cut them out, I put a piece of paper underneath so that the paper cut at the same time as the baby wipe, okay? And I've only used a tiny weeny bit of glue to make these sort of stick, and I've used Lisa's glue and they stick beautifully. So, you know, there are ways and ways of using them, or you could stick them directly to your card. So you could use the leaves and put the leaves direct on your card. I've got some leaves here. So you could use, where's my little one? This one. So you could use that and add that directly to your card, and then you could add your baby white cut out flower directly to your card and do it like that. Or, like I say, you could stick them to the paper and again stick them direct to your card and use them like that. So 2 different ways of using the baby wipe. Rather than just throw it away, you can get some use out of it, and the colours again are really sort of fantasy and random. Okay, so I only used 1 baby white there, but I've got 8 flowers out of that, so I could use those as well. So that's another way of using them. Yes, I suppose you could use the kitchen towel as well. I've got a piece of kitchen towel here, which again I've used for wiping up the ink off my blending mat, and once that is dry, I'd probably use it a lot more, but once that's dry you could probably put that through as well and get the same sort of effect. These would probably be a little bit more robust than the baby white ones, but again, something you could try. All right, and then I thought, I wonder what it'd look like in just anthracite ink. So here's one that I did, and again I've gone with the same sort of layout as the pansy, but I've literally just used anthracite ink. Okay, so that was just anthracite, and again literally all I've done, if I show you, is I've come in from the edges with that anthracite and I've gone darker on the edge, and as I've come into the middle I've sort of lifted off a little bit so that I haven't got much colour in the middle, but I've got that deep colour on the edge. And then the middle, I was going to leave it white, but I thought no, I won't do that. I'll just lightly, you can see how far back I'm holding the brush, so I haven't got a great deal of pressure here, and literally I'm just lightly going over that centre to give me that sort of pale, almost pale green colour. And I've done the same with the other one and just joined them together. And then the centre bit again is that beautiful centre from the POSY builder, and I've inked it with anthracite ink. And then I thought, well, actually I want it to stand out a little bit more, so I've actually used Lisa's black sparkle pen that came in the set of 3, and I've just gone over the top of it. And you can, I don't know whether you can pick up the sparkle on that flower, but it does just lift that centre quite a bit. Yeah, you can just pick it out, I think, that sparkle. I think it's just, and it just lifts that centre from being the same colour as the rest of it. So that's the anthracite, and I just think that is, again, another way of using them if you wanted a monochrome card, and you could do a whole bunch of these. They would look amazing. So that's another way of colouring them. So if I just take this anthracite off here, because I don't want it on my card. Okay, and then I thought, what about vellum? You know, the fabulous vellum that Lisa has in her Modern Florals box kit. I thought, I've got to try some of that. So I've cut them out, and I've used 3 different colours here. So I used the yellow, the orange and the pink. They cut beautifully. That vellum cuts like a dream. Now I was going to use some embossing powder and emboss some of them, but I ran out of time. So I might just do some with these. But with the colours, all I've done, I didn't want to leave them plain, I wanted to add some colour. So all I've done again here is just come in off the edge of the blending mat with Shocking Pink and Pina Colada. And on this one I've actually used Pumpkin Spice. And although I started on the edge and worked my way in on the pink one, what I did on this one was I did come in off the edge, but then actually went back and dragged the colour out towards the edge of the flower. And I just think it looks a little bit better than the other two. But if you drag the colour in, can you see how it sort of, it doesn't leave a solid line, it just sort of blends away into that colour. I think it's just a really soft way of colouring them. But as I say, this vellum is so fabulously thick that you could make umpteen of these and make a really beautiful card, or you know, like one of Tina's fancy stand-up cards, which I've actually got a base for, so I might do that later. But again, just another way of colouring them without actually using the whole of the petal. You don't always have to colour the whole thing. All right, so that was another way. And I think really colour wise that was about it. This one, I actually put the ink, I'd cut the flower, and again I smooshed the ink onto my blending mat and sprayed it with water, and then just dipped the flower. It is a little bit pale for what I wanted, so if I wanted it darker I would just go and do exactly the same again, and make it a little bit darker. But you can see that you can get the same sort of effect as using your brushes just by smooshing the ink and using a little bit of water. You can get a similar sort of effect. And then this one was really solid colour with just a little hint of shocking pink in the middle. So you can see this one is Juicy Pineapple, and all I've done is just gone round the edge with Sweet Violet. Now it looks brown on here, but that's because the purple and the yellow have blended and made it into a different colour. But again, you know, you can change the look of the flowers by how much ink you use. You know, you don't have to go all the way in like I did on the first ones that I showed you. So the blue and the pink ones, you don't have to go all the way in. You can just go right on the edges and you get a totally different look. Or you can mix and match your colours, change your colours round. So there are several different ways of colouring your flowers, and you will have so much fun. Yes, of course you can cut them out of coloured card and add colour round the edges, and again that is just cutting it on one coloured card and adding a different colour ink, and it's just fabulous. You'll have so much fun, I can't begin to tell you. I mean, I spent all day yesterday and most of this morning just die cutting and colouring, because I just wanted to try and show you as many different ways as I could of adding colour to just white cardstock. But you can add the same sort of colour to any colour cardstock and it will look equally as brilliant. So, you know, the world is your oyster, as they say. So let's just move all these out of the way, these little inky pads, and we'll make our card. So as I said, it is a Z-fold card primarily, and I just think it looks fabulous. So what you want is a piece of white card which measures 10 by 7, and you're going to score it at 2.5, 5 inches and 7.5. So each of these are 2.5 inch panels, all right? And then you're going to mountain fold, valley fold, mountain fold, so that you've got a sort of a very slim panel card, okay? And then you want your matte and layer card to go on here. So I'm trying not to move everything all at the same time. So then you'll need 4 pieces of whatever colour cardstock you choose to use. I've gone with blue, and I have to say that the blue actually suits the paper really well. So your coloured cardstock needs to be, now I'm giving you the measurements for the matte and layers that I like to use. I've said to you before that I like a really small matte and layer. If you want them bigger, all you need to do is just adjust your measurements slightly, okay? So these are 2 3/8 by 6 7/8, okay? And they are going to fit beautifully inside those panels there, okay? Like so. And then you'll need 2 pieces of white cardstock, which again are slightly smaller than this, and they are 2 1/8 by 6 5/8, okay, and then emboss them. And again, you can see that I've used the DITSY Florals as my embossing folder because I just adore it. And then they will go down there like so. They're actually a little bit smaller than I wanted, but never mind. And then you'll need your designer papers, and these are from box kit 1, okay. And again, these are 2 1/8 by 6 5/8, and these are going to go on this side here, okay. So what we'll do before we go any further is we will put all these together, and then we can move on to the extra bit that goes on the front. So I've already made my flowers for today's card. Well, I've actually coloured my flowers so that I've got the colours that I want, and I've tried to pick out the colours in this designer paper, okay. Just hope I haven't got too much ink on my fingers and spoil all my white card. So just add our glue down here. Be a bit generous with the embossed card, because obviously the embossing is so deep that you want it to be secure. The glue is brilliant, but obviously, let's shoot that to it. No worries, Alison. Okay, and then I'm going to add those down to my base card, and then I'll put the designer papers on the other 2 pieces and add those down as well. So you see, the card comes together quite quickly, and if you've done all your prep and your flower colouring, it's not going to take you long at all, and it does look really, really effective when it's finished. Okay, so that's my base card ready to stand up. Okay, now then, for your piece that sits on the front, you're going to need a piece of card that measures 6 by 3, okay, and score it at 3 inches so that you've got a 3-inch square. Okay, now I'm going to add this down after I've put my mat and layers on here, alright, just because it's easier to add the mat and layers first. So my 2 pieces of coloured cardstock are 2 7/8 by 2 7/8, that's right, because the card is 3 by 3, okay. So I'm going to add those down onto that card, and then once I've added my next piece, I'm going to add this to the main piece of the card, and then I'm going to add my flowers last, because I want to add the flowers probably over the top of some of this panel. Okay, so then I've got 2 pieces of white card, which are 2 6/8 square, and which are going to fit in here. So I'm going to add these down to my base card. And I think those tiny mats and layers are just, I think they just set this off beautifully. And then my flowers are going to just sit either side of this. Okay, so this is my last piece, and then once I've attached this to the card, we can add the flowers. Okay, so that's my piece that's going to sit forward. Okay, so this is going to sit on here. Now the easiest way, I think, to attach this is to sit the card where you want this to sit, and then add your glue onto the back of this, flip it over, and then add the glue onto the back of the other piece as well. So let's flip that out there. I actually want to put a pencil line just on the underside of that, because I don't want it to, I don't want to put my glue in the wrong place. So let's do this one first. Put my glue down, and then we can put this in place, and then we can do our line on the other one on the other side. Okay, So sit that there and then decide. Now, because this has got stripes on it, it's easy to line it up. And we'll go in a little bit just to be absolutely certain. And I would put it more or less in the middle just so that it just looks more aesthetically pleasing, I think. All right. So then this one, I'm not going to bother with the pencil line. I know more or less where I want the glue, so, and we put that one that side. A little bit over the top there, but never mind. It's not going to go anywhere. Okay, so when you open it out, your front piece opens forward and the back piece sits backward, and I think that just looks fabulous. Okay, so now you want to add your flowers. Now, what colours you choose, totally up to you. As I said, I've already done all my flowers that I want to add to this card, and I've used different sets of leaves for different flowers. So, you know, the world is your oyster. Let your imagination run wild. Okay, so we'll do the back one first, and we'll just sit that. Now, it doesn't have to sit right within that square, because it's a card that's going to be, I don't know, flat, I suppose, in the envelope. It doesn't matter that it overhangs this square, because it's still within the body of the card. Do you know what I mean? So we're going to put this one here, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to trim that off when I've glued it so that it sits within that square. Okay, I don't want the stem sort of sitting out over the top. You could 3D these if you wanted to, but I'm not going to. I'm going to just do these flat, because I don't think it needs 3D, if I'm honest. So just pop that there like so, and then just use a little bit of glue down here on that bit of stem, because I don't need much. And then I just want to trim that bit of stem off there so that it sits within that square nicely. Okay, and then I'm going to flip it over, and I'm going to do the flowers on this side. Now, the flowers on this side I did make a little bit bigger. I've 3D'd these, okay, and I'm just going to sit them so that it doesn't really hide the word. Okay, so just play around with it and use different leaf sets, different flower variations. You can use flat flowers if you wanted to, I think. So I'm going to add my glue down here on the leaves, and then hopefully the little bit of glue that I put here will be enough to hold that flower in place. Should be. So I'm going to add that down there like so. I'm just going to hold that in place for a second, just till it takes. Possibly. I never thought of that. I'm sure I measured them right, but yeah, you could be right. So there's my two lots of flowers. So then I just want another set of another flower here, and I went with the smaller of the two pink and blue ones that I did. And again, this is going flat on the card. Now, you can go to town with this if you wanted to. You could make it really full of flowers, or just a few flowers. It's entirely up to you, really. Do what makes your heart happy. So that's going there like that. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a flower to the front of the card down here. I'm going to use that one, or I'm going to use this one. I think I'm going to use this one, because what I want to do really is try and hide that gap between those two stalks. Are you with me? So I don't really want to see a gap there if I can help it. If I can't do it, I can't do it. It's not a problem. Where's that other? What did I do with that other pansy? I can't find it. I might use the other pansy. Oh, it's over here. I might use that one actually. And then just add a different leaf. Yeah, I'll do that. And then I can save that one for a different card, because apart from anything else, it is a little bit dark for what I wanted. So I'm just going to add this down here. Now this is thinking on the hoof, this is, because I haven't planned this bit at all. So let's put that there. Hold that on the back, make sure that's secure. And then we can add our glue on this one. And then add this to the card. Like so. So you see what I mean? I just wanted to hide that, the fact that there was no join between those two stems. I just wanted it to look a little bit neater. Okay, I will go back and add a bit of glue on there. And then lastly, on this side, I'm going to use this one on this side, I think, and just add this down to the front here, just to give it a little bit more interest, just to make it look a little bit more special. You can use less, more, whatever you want. It's entirely up to you, totally your choice. If you just wanted to leave flowers on here and not add any to the side panels, then you could do that as well. So let's add that down there. Make sure we don't lose any of the word. And there you go. There's your concertina, Z-fold, panel card, whatever you want to call it. Using embossing folders, box kit papers, and that fabulous, fabulous blooming lovely die set. I think actually what I'm going to do is I am just going to add some leaves down here. Let's put the glue on here, and then that flower doesn't look sort of as if it's floating in midair. Do you know what I mean? It's got a little bit more interest to it. So if I just pop that down there like so, you can't even see the join, and then a little bit of glue under there, and a little bit of glue under there, and then it's not going to go anywhere. If you wanted to add some gems at the top, you could do, and don't think it needs it, but I just think that's a beautiful card. There you go. I hope you enjoyed that. Have a fabulous week everybody, and thank you so much for joining me. Take care now. Bye.